It's not about man or woman. It's not about black or white. It's not about Jew or Muslim or Christian. These are divide and conquer. It's as old. It's an age-old conquering mechanism. Something that Hillary Clinton, she would love to subscribe to this Machiavellian way. It's not about. You got to forget about the tribalism for a second. It's literally a way of controlling us, and they are going to selectively enforce these laws and divide us systematically like that. You've got to remember who you are, where you are, the things happening here, and how you can actually make a change. And I'm talking to the camera here because I have been really angry about ever since October 7th, not because of what's been happening overseas. There are slaughters of innocents that happen every day in Africa, in the Middle East. We see it with regards to Argentina. And when I see these things going on, it's so selective what they cover. And I'm like, guys, how about we get back to basics? We live in Australia. Unless you're planning on moving and fighting for Israel or fighting for Palestine, let's stick to Aussie topics. This conflict that's 14,000 k's away. People know my feelings on this. My uncle was Palestinian. He was kicked out, when he was 4 months old. They weren't even allowed to take a bottle of milk from him. But he moved here. He made a very successful business, and he lives here with his family and his kids and grandkids, and he's flourishing. He didn't stay in that. He was like, yep, I don't like what's going on, but he moved on with his life. But when we get stuck in this, and when our grievances get manipulated and used by the government, that's when we lose. And that's what I'm really trying to push against here, because these laws are going to punish us, all of us, me, Dr. Shavura, everyone on this panel. Our businesses are going to get closed down. And I need everyone to be sober about this. I know it's fun. I know it feels good to be angry, but unfortunately, you're the bull, and they're the one with the red sheet. That's the problem.
Well, it brings up a good point, because what they're doing is creating labels. So by creating these labels, and it doesn't matter whether it's anti-vaxxer, cooker, conspiracy theorist, Islamophobist, racist, it creates these labels that, one, gives people the justification to ignore your argument. The second thing it does is it creates an environment where people don't want to be labeled by these labels. I don't want to be called a racist, so I'm not going to say anything. So what happens is it then limits who's willing to stand up and speak. And it goes back again to what I was talking about with the masks. When you limit who's making these comments, it becomes much easier to control, because people don't want to be labeled. They don't want to speak out. So the people who speak out become very easy to spot, and they become very easy to censor. So the more that these come into place, the more these people are put into positions to censor us, the easier it's going to get, unless everyone is willing to stand up and speak out. And again, as they continue to divide us more and more, that becomes harder and harder.
I think misinformation, disinformation, my spin on that is that basically what we want you to, we'll control what you, that's basically, it's a
Well, it brings up malinformation as well, where they start incorporating. So malinformation is where you're telling the truth, but it's going to harm their reputation. And how long, I have no doubt malinformation is going to be included in the disinformation scenario. So
it's basically
it's
just
not,
what we want to tell you, basically, or what we decide is going to be that. And I think that, I'm with you, unless it's, real violence towards someone, I think people should be able to say what they want to say. And that's, I grew up in Zimbabwe, and under this dictatorship with Robert Mugabe, and you had to be nervous. You couldn't just say what the fact that you can live in a country where you can actually just say what you want to say. Even between brothers and sisters, people wouldn't want to share that information because they were too nervous of what might happen to that. And we don't want to go down that path.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. A couple of government expenditure stories I wanted to run through with you guys. First and foremost, Anthony Albanese's dog, Toto, has been claiming $200 every week on dog food, just so you know. In other news, the NDIS are basically using taxpayers' money, but the NDIS is funded $35 billion every year. Part of that is some of these people getting psychic healing, tarot cards, sound baths, whatever the hell that is, crystal wand making, and being offered are being offered this money, and often there's no cap on it with regards to what can be charged. Crystal healing, for example, and tarot cards could be $95 an hour. You guys are business owners. You guys have been paying taxes longer than I've been around. What did you think about all this?
Yeah, it's not a good thing. Not a good thing to see. It's as it is, we're in a massive cost of living crisis, interest rates, inflation, everything's going up, and we're putting all this money into the government, and again, to have this program. And look, I do see the benefits of the NDIS. I can see how it can help people in need, but it seems the people that need this help aren't getting it. Like I've seen a couple of stories where people are in like really bad situations. They need the money, they need the help, they need the therapists. They can't get it, but somehow these people are getting these sort of crazy things. And again, it just comes down to the bigger a government gets, the bigger the bureaucracy. There are going to be people who know how to play the system, and they're going to take advantage of it. And it's just going to get harder and harder to control. So, seeing my tax money go in that way, especially with how much everything else is costing, it's not a pleasant thought.
Fundamentally, isn't it about like you need to have the guts to be able to say like, I'm going to cut this, and you may attack me, but it's for your own good. Basically, no one's willing to do that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, once you start giving people free stuff, good luck trying to take it away. Because what begins as, wow, this is great, got some free stuff, I really needed this. After a while, it's like, where's this stuff? It's my right to have it. So a privilege turns into a right. And that's one of the dangerous things about how big this NDIS has become. But if I can touch on something that's kind of serious about this, and that is like the headline that I'm looking at here: NDIS Minister Bill Shorten said government-funded sex work will be scrapped under reform. That actually is a serious thing. I mean, my heart goes out to people who are profoundly disabled, who can't enjoy one of the wonderful things of life, that is sex. Sex is a good thing. It's created by God. And I do really feel sorry for people whose profound disabilities make it very easy for them, very difficult for them to enjoy that with the ease that most other people can enjoy it. I still think it's actually not the right thing for governments to be using brothels and prostitutes to do that. And yeah, I do use the word prostitute. I don't use the term sex worker because I think it's an attempt to legitimize something that I don't think should be seen as a legitimate occupation. I think it's a highly exploitative industry, and I will be the first to say that many women who go into it do it through consent, but a lot of the women who go into it, probably even most of the women who go into it, have very broken backgrounds, use drugs to get through it on a daily basis. This is not a good industry for governments to be supporting, and I think most of us know that this is not a good occupation for a woman to be engaged in. I'm not aware of too many fathers whose aspiration for their daughters or for their sons is to go into prostitution. We kind of, even those who use these things, they wouldn't want their own children engaged in this. And so I think it's, as much as I do actually feel for those who have used these services because owing to their disabilities, I think it has the unfortunate effect of legitimizing an industry that I don't think should be seen as legitimate. And therefore, I think it's actually a good thing that funding for that has been cut.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that when the NDIS first came around, I got a friend of mine who's got her brother was disabled, and she's Dutch, and she was telling me that for 25 years or so, her brother has been looked after, and they've had this kind of our equivalent NDIS for years before it even started. So I think there's definitely a place for it, for the NDIS, for to look after it. But when they kind of rolled it out, to me it just stank of the same thing. You remember the pink bats when they rolled out? It was just done in such a it was just being rorted left, right and center. People actually died from the pink bat thing. And I think the NDIS, I heard something the other day, they said, I think there's 1 million on welfare and there's like 700,000 people on the NDIS. And you think, gee, 700,000 people, assuming those numbers are correct. That is a lot of people that have problems that, where were they before? How did they? And so I think what's happened is it's just being rorted at so many different levels, and it's becoming such a debt. And you think about the Medicare. I think I read somewhere not long ago that it's almost getting up to the numbers of Medicare. That is the amount of money that's serving, Medicare for all Australians. I mean, it's just too much, and they've got to clean it up and actually just give. I think the intent was correct in the beginning, which was actually caring for people that really needed it, but it's just become a complete rort in all different areas within the NDIS.
That actually brings up a good point. I do think our country and our people are getting a lot sicker, and I think a lot of that comes from government nutritional advice. I mean, if you looked at the pandemic and what happened, we didn't get any health advice. All we got was pharmaceutical advice. Where was the get out and get some sun, go out and exercise. Make sure you're eating healthy foods. Make sure you're supplementing with vitamin D or vitamin C. The little things that really do make a difference and have been shown to help. None of that advice at all. And it's just it.
And still.
Yeah, and still. And it just shows that the government really isn't interested in health.
And also,
sorry, I was just saying, and the population just continues to get bigger and sicker.
Yeah,
and also kids growing up. Like I've got a friend of mine who's up in Queensland, and she's got 2 kids, and they're both on the NDIS because they've got, with all the peanut and all these allergies and ADD and stuff which 20 years ago just I'd never even heard of.
Yeah.
But like all these kids now are growing up with all these. A friend of mine who was she's a teacher, a young girl actually, at a barbecue about a year ago, and she had her first event as a teacher, and they went away for the weekend kind of thing, and she said the tray of table of pills for all of these kids at this thing, it was just literally there wasn't one that didn't have a bunch of pills.
If you look into this, you could actually become an anti-vaxxer.
But yeah, so there, maybe there is that many more people sick now.
And it's so obvious, isn't it? I mean, it's so obvious that there is something wrong with so many kids these days. And everyone knows it. It's an elephant in the room. It's the emperor without his clothes. But you're not allowed to just ask a question like, why are so many kids getting sick from peanuts?
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal?
Yeah.
And look, another one, and it's very sad, but so many children now diagnosed to be on the autistic spectrum. Why is this happening? Now some say, oh, well, we're better at diagnosing now. I don't think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you just...
And to make matters worse, on YouTube and the even the professionals in this space, they say, this is what we're seeing in the data, and YouTube is like, no, you can't even have the debate in Joe Rogan. It's like, you guys make me sick, and you're enabling, and one day there's going to be lawsuits flying, but they think they're untouchable.
Yeah.
They think they're untouchable.
And we just want to know what's wrong with our kids.
Yep.
That's it. It's not even a political agenda. We just want to know, why are kids dying from eating peanuts? Why are so many children born on the spectrum? What is going on? Help us. No, can't talk about it.
I know I'm signing on, but when I grew up, there was no kids with any pills anywhere.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Even,
no,
I mean,
exactly.
I was only born in 1978. There were no allergies like that among my sort of peers.
Yeah, that's shocking. You mentioned with the sort of mass immigration, too many people coming.